We often look up to the stars for answers, but we are suggesting you might look down for a change. We are handing you a terrestrial telescope and inviting you to go ground gazing with us. What do you see? Cropped plants, ink spots of water, open mounds of tufted earth. Dive deeper, there is a world beneath. A festival of exchange, a body that brings balance. Peatlands are rich constellations where we can discover ancient histories, cultural heritage, and essential ecosystems. Their wisdom can help us to learn more about the world we live in and how to make it a better place together. Hi and welcome to Beginnings, the first episode in a Bogcast series made for Peat-Fest South-West, a festival brought to you by the Art and Energy Collective, partnered with Repeat and many other land restoration organisations. Peat-Fest will host loads of youth-focused events all over the southwest of England that will celebrate the strength and beauty of peatlands. We will come together to share knowledge and raise awareness about these landscapes, making us better equipped to live with them, restore and care for them going forward. In this episode, the sun rises 300 million years ago. Energy-rich rays were stored slowly by photosynthesizing plants in waterlogged lands. Homo sapiens, a species with unusual ambition, drove into the ground, sourcing their speed from ancient energy. We will explore how peat is a beautiful result of symbiotic interactions, a festival of exchange beneath the surface, and how we can celebrate, gain skills and restore peatlands together.
Do you know what peat is? You can say you don't know.
I don't actually know what peat is. The only time that I've seen it referenced is peat-free compost.
I don't know what peat is.
So I think peat it's something that's growing from the ground. I imagine it being quite soggy and wet, but I'm not quite sure. Like, I imagine finding peat up in the moors, like around like the rock, like if it's been raining loads and finding it there, that's the type of thing I imagine peat to be.
I think it's a degraded sphagnum moss that's broken down and can last there for thousands of years as long as it remains wet.
So peat is partially decomposed organic matter, and what I mean by that is if you think about your compost heap at home and a banana skin that still stays around in it, that's a little bit like what peat is. It forms under really special conditions, and here in the southwest it's normally formed from partially decomposed, so partially broken down sphagnum mosses and other vegetation that you'll find in a bog. Peatlands are really specialised habitats, and because of this they have lots of different species growing there that you don't really find anywhere else. They're quite acidic. Peatlands are a huge carbon store, locking up all the carbon from the vegetation that was growing in them throughout its life. When they're wet and squidgy, they lock this carbon away for thousands of years, with the peat getting deeper and more carbon being stored through the years. Peatlands are really important for so many different reasons. They also hold and spread a lot of water into the landscape, providing a really specialised habitat and drinking areas for lots of different animals. It's also such an important place for people to be able to get out into, have a squidge about in, look at the different species growing there, watch a dragonfly, have fun out in a bog. Peatlands are really important in terms of water quality as well, so they can store water. They can also slow the flow of water coming off landscapes by providing more surface roughness up on the moorlands. It's also important in terms of water quality, that water coming off an intact peatland is often a bit like a filter, whereas if water comes off a damaged peatland, it can often turn that tea colour that you really don't want to be drinking. So by restoring peatlands and holding the water in the landscape, it has a lot of different benefits in terms of water, water quality and water storage.
What is unique about peatlands?
What isn't unique about peatlands?
Peat is
where peat is moist, peat is exciting, peat is queer, peat is dark, peat is hundreds of thousands of years old, and peat is also new and undiscovered. Peat is important because it is currently something that we don't understand, or general consciousness doesn't understand or interact with in a way that cares for the land in the way that we should. Currently we've been destroying peat because of turfing practices, but actually if we learn how to live with peat, we can go back to a symbiotic relationship that is resilient to climate change.
So, are we all ready to launch Peat-Fest South-West?
The Southwest isn't really renowned for peat. Overall, I think people don't really get the whole region as being quite significant for its pockets of peat. In Somerset, there's the Fens. In Dorset, there are little peat pockets among the heathlands that are really significant and beautiful. And then there's peatlands in and around Exmoor and Dartmoor and Cornwall. So very varied region, so much to show and share and celebrate.
I think it's really cool, having grown up in the Southwest, now getting to take young folk out onto the moors, out onto the heath. So often kids don't have access to those things, or if they do, like, organisations are kind of so strapped for cash now that these opportunities are less and less. So it's really great to be able to take young folk out and get them excited, because people don't know that peat is here in the Southwest. When you talk to people about the festival, often it's like, oh wow, I didn't know there was peat in the Southwest. That's really cool. And it's just like really exciting to be able to get kids to become advocates and champion the peat, and to think about maybe in 20 years what they might be doing on the peatland and where things might be at by then.
Yeah, so Peat-Fest South-West is celebrating our peatland heritage, thinking about the past and the future, isn't it? And the sort of natural heritage, obviously the biodiversity and its role in relation to climate change is so important. The cultural heritage and all the uses that can be made of the various things that grow and live in peatlands as well, those green skills that so many people have perhaps forgotten or don't quite understand. So it's a festival that's multi-dimensional. For us in Art and Energy, a collective of artists working creatively with the whole climate change agenda, it has been about understanding carbon sequestration and getting to look closely at what mosses do, which led to looking at sphagnum moss and restoration at a very tiny scale in Dartmoor. So overall, we have done this background work, getting enthusiastic about peat and making friends with all sorts of organisations. And one of those organisations was Repeat, who work very much with the young person in mind.
Repeat is an international collective of young folks working in thinking about peat. And it started a few years ago as an online peat fest for 24 hours of how we don't have the answers about how to care for peat, but that collectively we can figure it out together. And I think that is really the spirit of Peat-Fest South-West, is not, oh, this is what we should be doing in the Southwest, but how can we engage young folks through this festival with their communities to think about how they want to protect peat or care for peat or work with peat or dream of new futures with peat. And doing that creatively, but also rooted in like the really practical knowledge of the delivery teams who are doing such amazing work on site, and how can we have this creative, fun element that allows young folks to do world building, imagining new futures, but also like really kind of grounded in the practicalities of what it means to protect and repair and grow in these landscapes.
Some of our hopes for the Peat Festival include developing a manifesto with the young voices that will speak to the communities but also the organisations that work across the region, provide a new way of describing the importance of peatlands to young people for the future. We will all grow from being part of this festival, I think.
Dawn is slightly too searing. It goes deeper than dawn has been for a while. I feel it in my damp, dark depths where it hasn't shone since dawn in the Pliocene. Dawn is hot and not healthy.
Yeah, and what kind of dangers does peatland face? What is threatening it?
Well, here we're fortunate because it's SSSI, it's designated. We're not in danger from anyone coming in here to extract peat or anything like that. It's secure. But the key dangers probably are some invasive species, obviously climate change, drying out, wildfires.
The good thing about not destroying it is that we've got, instead of having to, send carbon off into space or something, we've got things here that can just
consume.
We've got things here that can just consume it.
And probably has some job also holding water in the ground, I would imagine. I would want to ask them about that. Because that's why it was used for plants at home, and now it's not allowed anymore to keep the water inside the pots. So maybe it does that in nature.
Yeah.
Let's find out.
Why do you think peat has been misunderstood?
Well, that's because people don't get very excited about soil and mud.
Peat has been misunderstood because we have been interacting with it in an extractive relationship where we have been damaging it and using it for single-purpose uses like compost, where actually we should be seeing it as an incredible resource to be respected and in conversation with.
So this is a letter to the Avalon Marshes, and it's, "Hi, we are south of you, and our heathland is caught between the sea and the urban sprawl. Once it was not. It was part of Thomas Hardy's landscape of farming the land in a gentle way, sheep being led across miles of Bell, Ling and Dorset Heath to graze. The landscape rolled from the escarpment down to white cliffs. Now it is fragmented and fragile. As conservationists, we try and protect it and help people love the beauty of this place. Sometimes it's a losing battle, and we need to ask ourselves whether the cost and trauma of decades of deliberate arson is worth the effort. It is. For to walk in its quiet, to hear the wind blow from the dry heath on the hill, the popping of gorse flowers in the heat, and then the noise of peat moving beneath sundews and your feet is to understand and really become part of our natural world with love."
My message to the peat, and I just wrote this in a letter to Pete a moment ago, was that to apologise that we've taken more than we've given, I think, to peat. It's been a fantastic use of fuel in the past, so it's played an important role in years gone by. I think people probably respected peatlands more, in a sense, that even though they were sort of taking what they needed and only what they needed, whereas modern day development has taken more. So I guess my message to Pete is don't give up on us now, because we're not going to give up on you. We're going to do our best to repair, restore, maintain, because now we've finally woken up and realised how special you are.
Big bird. Might try and stick to the road. So that wingspan is longer than I am. You can do that after.
Upton Heath, walking slow, listening for nature as we go. In the bush, the cricket singing. Upton Heath, walking slow, listening for nature as we go. Sundew scarlet shouting out. Upton Heath, walking slow, listening for nature as we go. Dashing dragonflies are chattering Upton Heath, walking slow, listening for nature as we go. Butterflies are fluttered down low, urban peat beneath our feet, sphagnum moss in a squelchy sheet.
Crunchy gravel, smooth, soft sand.
Yeah.
This is how Beyonce. That was great. Woo-hoo.
Appointment warning. As for mollusks are yawning.
If I could put a message in the peat bog for someone else to discover in the future, I would tell them to really value it and really keep exploring it, because there's still probably loads of things we don't know about it, like all of nature. Yeah, just learn to love it and protect it.
Peat habitats are under threat, so we're losing through development and burns and things. It's a real precious and kind of threatened habitat. So if somebody digs up that message in a long time, that's just great to show it's still there.
I'd want the peat to know that it's such an amazing property. It's very important. It's doing an amazing job of keeping our biodiversity going, keeping our ecosystems re-wetted. Really important for nature, really important for climate change, and really important because it's capturing carbon, which we know is one of the key problems we have with greenhouse gas emissions. So I think I'd say to peat, you're doing a fantastic job. You're covering many multiple benefits for our ecosystems across the UK.
I find it really interesting that peat bogs used to be like a common, so like a resource that belonged to the community that everybody took care of, and the bog took care of them by providing all the, what we nowadays have rebranded as ecosystem services, right? So protecting from drought, protecting from floods, and then people also took care of the landscape itself. Like we heard a lot today about how it would have been traditionally managed, and I just want people to know that throughout history humans have had a relationship with peat that has gone both ways, and I hope that we can start to have those relationships with peat bogs again in the future.
Oh, be resilient to all that urbanness and all the humanness that live around you. Stay firm in your place.
I don't know, I'm going to take away so much today, but I think maybe my biggest thing is not actually the heath or the peat, but the people that I met today, because I had lots of amazing conversations with people who are working really hard to restore peat, to make art about restoring peat, to have conversations about restoring peat, and I found all of the work that all of those people do really inspiring, and I was really happy to be able to connect with them.
I genuinely think that the more people come here, the more that people will see how much peat and soil, all of this kind of really means to the world.
We feel privileged to have been able to make this podcast with funding from the Heritage Lottery Fund. Special thanks to everyone who spoke to us and helped make this happen, to the Art and Energy Collective and Repeat, to all the other wonderful organisations involved, including South-West Peatland Partnership, Dorset Peatland Partnership, the Avalon Marshes Partnership, the National Trust, RSPB, Wildlife Trusts, Dartmoor and Exmoor National Parks, Planet Purbeck, Cornwall National Landscape Team, and thank you to Otis Jordan for the beautiful music you heard, and of course to you for listening.